My name is Matthew, and if I've learned anything in the last few months, it's that one night can ruin everything you thought you knew. I never expected my life would take the turn it did, but it did, and it all started with her bachelorette party. That night didn't just ruin a celebration, it broke trust. So sit back. I want to take you from the beginning, not just the night everything went wrong, but the moments that led up to it, because none of this came out of nowhere. It all built up like layers. I met my fiancée, Sophia, through a local book club I'd been a part of for a while. It was a casual gathering of people who liked to read and talk about the stuff they were reading. I noticed her because she had this quiet, focused presence, just genuinely interested in the book discussion. That was the first thing that stood out to me. After the meeting, we ended up walking out at the same time. I don't remember who spoke first, probably me, but we talked a bit about the book. But from that day, it became a pattern. Every time the club met, we'd talk a little more. She'd hang back a bit longer. I'd find a reason to sit near her. Before long, we were having full-on conversations after every meeting. Then we started texting. At first, it was just about books. Then it moved to our lives, our thoughts, and random things. The texting turned into calls. She told me she had recently gotten out of a relationship. As for me, I had always been single because I never really clicked with anyone on that level before. But with Sophia, it felt easy. Eventually, the feelings became obvious. It wasn't a matter of if we liked each other. It was just a question of when we'd finally admit it. And when we did, it made sense to start dating. From that point, our relationship moved steadily. We dated for over a year. I was sure, without a doubt, that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. So I proposed. Right after that, we jumped into planning mode. 4 months after the proposal, we picked a date for the wedding. As the date came closer, the excitement just kept building. Our friends were hyped. Our families were happy. We were getting texts every other day about wedding prep, outfits, gifts, travel plans. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. Over time, because of how close we had become and how much we started doing together, our friend group started to mix. Her friends became my friends. My guys became cool with her girls. Sophia and I had decided to each have our own bachelor and bachelorette parties. We figured it would be a fun way to mark the end of our single lives before diving into marriage. We planned them just 2 days before the wedding, leaving 1 day in between for hangovers and recovery, because, honestly, who doesn't need that after a night out? It felt like the right way to do it, especially with everyone else involved in the wedding coming from all over. My bachelor party took place at a nightclub. The guys and I were ready to let loose and have a blast, especially with a bunch of friends traveling from out of town to be there. It was one of those nights where everything was just right. The music, the drinks, the people. We were all celebrating, but more than anything, it felt like a last hurrah before I became a married man. It was hard to believe that in less than 48 hours, I would be standing at the altar, saying, "I do" to Sophia. It was surreal, you know? There was this feeling of finality, like a chapter closing, but also a lot of excitement. A little nervous, too, but more than anything, it felt like a moment I would never forget. On the other side of things, Sophia had her bachelorette party at a separate location. She told me it was going to be just the girls, some drinks, maybe hitting up a club. I figured she was just going to have a fun, laid-back night with her friends, and I was happy for her. After all, it's her last night out before settling down too. Later that evening, as we were enjoying the party at the nightclub, I saw something pop up on Instagram. One of Sophia's friends posted a story, and there they were, Sophia and the girls, all dressed in matching pink robes, clearly having a great time at an Airbnb. I remember feeling a little amused at first. Pink robes. That was definitely a funny touch. Around midnight, I decided to check in on her. So I sent a text, "Hope you're having fun. Love you." I didn't expect anything big in return, but usually she'd text back quickly, even if it was just a simple thanks or love you too. But this time, I waited. Nothing. That was strange. I gave it some time and figured maybe she was just caught up with everyone, too busy having fun. Then, another hour passed, and I checked again. Still no reply. What really threw me off, though, was that her location had been turned off. She had never done that before. The night went on, and we wrapped up the bachelor party around 3 a.m. I still hadn't heard anything from her. I called, but her phone was off. I assumed she and the girls probably passed out at the Airbnb, and I'd hear from her in the morning. So I went home, threw my phone on the bed, and crashed. I was exhausted. Little did I know that was the last peaceful moment I would have before everything changed. I woke up that morning a little groggy at around 10 a.m. My phone rang, and it was my best friend, who was also supposed to be my best man at the wedding. I picked up the phone, and before I could even say hello, he jumped straight into it. He told me that his girlfriend, who was at Sophia's bachelorette party, had come home earlier that morning completely hungover. She was out of it, slurring her words and barely able to explain what had gone down. She tried to tell him what had happened, but none of it made sense. The whole thing was a mess. She passed out right after trying to talk about it, just couldn't keep her eyes open. Now at this point, I'm listening and trying to figure out what this all means. He went on to say that he, being a little concerned, had grabbed her phone to check what was going on. My stomach turned as he told me he found several videos from the bachelorette party. I couldn't even finish processing what he said. I sat straight up in bed. I told him, "Hold on, wait. What do you mean? What did you see?" He hesitated for a moment, like he was weighing how much he should tell me. Finally, he told me he wasn't telling me this for no reason. He said he was doing it because he knew if I found out about it later on, I'd be angry that he didn't speak up sooner. He didn't want to be the guy who stayed quiet, knowing how much it would hurt me when I found out. So, after that warning, I told him, forget the back and forth. Just tell me what's in the videos. He didn't waste time as he sent me multiple videos. In the first video, Sophia, my fiancée, and all her bridesmaids gathered around in what looked like the living room of that Airbnb they rented. They were all hyped up, talking about how this was their one last wild night. In the second video, they were popping champagne bottles. They were in full party mode now. It looked like a harmless fun. I wonder what my friend saw, because there is nothing wrong here. But in the third video, that's when everything started to shift. I saw the inside of a party bus. There were male strippers. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I had to rewind it to make sure I saw it right. Sophia was in the middle of it all, getting just as caught up in it as everyone else. The other girls were all in on it too, playing around, even getting handsy with the guys. But the main action was in the final video. This was the one that shattered me completely. They were back from the club now. Sophia was the center of attention, in the middle of the two strippers. I saw her all over them. There was no denying it. She was absolutely drunk. She was letting herself be handled by these guys in ways I couldn't even describe. The other girls, who were all drunk, were watching and cheering her to go even further. The friend filming it all was cheering them on, too. I couldn't process what I was seeing. I was crushed inside. She was supposed to be my bride, and here she was, acting in a way that made me question every word she'd ever said to me. I took a breath and called back my best man who had sent me these videos. I thanked him, but when he asked me, "What are you going to do?" I hung up on him. I couldn't even put into words what was happening in my mind, but I knew one thing for sure: everything had changed, and there was no going back from this. It was around 4 p.m. when my phone finally buzzed with Sophia's name lighting up the screen. I'd been wondering when she would call. I picked up the phone, trying to sound calm, but I'm sure she could hear the edge in my voice. She immediately launched into a half-hearted explanation about how crazy last night had been. "I just woke up, it was wild," she said, but I knew better. I couldn't just ignore what I had seen, and I needed to hear the truth from her. I asked her plainly, "What did you do?" She hesitated, then said, "We had fun." It wasn't the answer I was looking for, and it wasn't even close to addressing what I knew had happened. My patience was running thin, so I pressed her again. "With strippers." She tried to downplay it like it was nothing, saying, "Oh, the strippers weren't my idea. They were brought by the girls, not me. I didn't know about it. I wasn't stupid. I didn't want to argue with her over the phone, so I ended the call before it could escalate." But of course, she didn't let it go. My phone started blowing up with repeated calls from her. The screen lit up with every ring, but I didn't pick up. I didn't want to hear more excuses. I hadn't expected her to show up at my door, but that's exactly what happened. I heard the knock, and when I opened the door, I found Sophia standing there, holding her purse. "I'm sorry, I know you're mad, but can we talk?" she asked. I hadn't even had a chance to tell her to leave when she walked right in. I tried to keep my composure, but the anger was bubbling up now. "I think it's time for you to go," I said, but she wasn't hearing it. I watched her sit down like we were about to have a normal conversation. But there was nothing normal about this situation. She started talking in circles, denying everything. "I swear, I didn't do anything with the strippers." "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. It was a familiar defense, the kind of denial that comes when someone doesn't want to face the truth. I wasn't having it. I didn't want to hear more lies. I walked over to her with my phone and hit play on the video. The silence in the room thickened as the explicit footage of her and the strippers played on the screen. There was no denying it, no way to twist it. She stared at the screen. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her eyes locked on the phone, realizing what she'd actually done. She broke down right in front of me, begging me to forgive her, to understand that she had no memory of what happened. "I was so drunk," she cried. "I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't mean for it to happen. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." I told her I needed space. I needed time to process everything. But Sophia wasn't having it. She wasn't ready to let go of her fairy tale just yet. "We're supposed to get married tomorrow," she pleaded. "There's no time for space." She was desperate, reaching for any reason to convince me that what happened wasn't a big deal. When I told her that I wouldn't be marrying her, her face twisted in pain, and for a split second, I thought she was going to crumble right there. But then, without warning, she turned toward the kitchen. "I can't live with myself if you do this," she said, her voice a mixture of despair and anger. She grabbed a knife from the counter and held it in her stomach. I rushed to stop her, using every bit of strength I had to keep her from hurting herself. My heart was pounding as I tried to restrain her. I knew she wasn't in her right mind, but this wasn't the way to fix it. It was a struggle, but I managed to hold her back. She was sobbing, and I knew I had to do something to calm her down. I lied, telling her that the marriage would still happen, just to give her some peace. I wasn't sure if I believed it, but it worked. She calmed down enough to fall asleep on the couch, her face wet with tears. When she woke up a few hours later, she stood up and said she was going to get ready for the wedding. I nodded. "See you tomorrow," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Once she left, I couldn't believe what had just happened, but I knew what I had to do. I quickly packed a few things. I left, not knowing exactly where I was headed, but I knew I needed to be somewhere far from her, far from everything that reminded me of the wedding. There was no way I could ever move forward with her after seeing what I saw. After I got to a quiet location, I made the announcement. The people who needed to know would find out. I didn't hesitate. I posted it. "The wedding is off because of the disgusting things the bride and her bridesmaids did at the bachelorette party." I knew that backlash was coming. People were going to question me. They were going to tell me I was overreacting, that I should forgive her. But I didn't care. I turned off my phone after that. I didn't want to hear from anyone. I didn't want the calls, the texts, or the pressure. I needed time to clear my head, to heal, or at least to start the process of healing. I booked a last-minute flight out of town. The plan was simple: get away from everything and everyone. There was no immediate rush to go back to my life, not with everything still so fresh. I needed time, even though I didn't know how long it would take to feel normal again. I don't know how long I've been here. All I know is that I'm far from home. But the truth is, I haven't even really processed it all. How could I? What happened to me was so far from anything I ever imagined for myself, for my future. Every time I try to wrap my head around it, I end up getting lost in the details. You know, if someone had told me this would happen to me, even a few weeks ago, I would have laughed and called them crazy. I was so sure that I was making the right choice. I'm here, though, trying to figure out what comes next. And I know I can't be the only one who's ever been in a situation like this. So, I have to ask you all, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have still gone ahead with the marriage? Or would you have ended it like I did? Honestly, I'm curious to hear your thoughts because right now, I still don't know if I did the right thing or not. So, if you've got something to say, drop a comment below. If you can relate to this, I want to hear your story too. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for listening.